Fraud is a constant threat to your notary commission. You need a shield. The book by Derrick Spruill, Notary Fraud Shield, could provide you with some advice. Learn real-world tactics, notice red flags, and develop refusal strategies to protect your notary commission. Buy your copy of Notary Fraud Shield by Derrick Spruill from any online bookstore, Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble Bookstore, booksofmillion.com, bookshop.org, Mobile Notary by DerrickSpruill.com, or download from Kindle to obtain your essential notary book to help with all your notarization starting today.
Welcome to Notary Knowledge, and today we have a really fascinating topic for you. Just imagine you were sitting at a sidewalk cafe in Paris.
Yeah, that sounds pretty nice right about now.
Right, you've got your laptop open, maybe an espresso on the table, and with just a high-definition webcam and a 2-minute digital pop quiz, you legally authenticate a power of attorney for a multi-million-dollar estate back in Seattle.
It genuinely feels like magic sometimes.
It really does. But today, we are looking at the invisible, highly rigid, and honestly, surprisingly, analog tripwires, making that digital transaction possible.
Yeah, exactly. So we are exploring the modernization of the Washington state notarial system.
And we are pulling from a really solid stack of sources for you all today. We've got the Revised Code of Washington 42.45, the Washington Administrative Code, Chapter 30830, plus official Department of Licensing guides.
And we also brought in some in-depth industry analyses from the National Notary Association.
Right. So our mission today is to really understand how an ancient profession, one engineered centuries ago to prevent fraud through sheer physical presence, has adapted to a world of biometrics and dynamic identity proofing.
Yeah, but we are also going to see how, in this massive rush to digitize, the state is enforcing boundaries that are stricter than ever.
Definitely. So before we get into the wild world of remote video notarizations, we really have to look at the foundational tools of the trade.
Right, the basics.
Because it is fascinating that a state fully embracing digital signatures is simultaneously so obsessed with physical ink and paper.
Oh, absolutely. The level of prescriptive detail regarding the physical tools is incredibly rigid. I mean, the state leaves absolutely zero room for artistic expression.
Not at all.
Right, and it all really comes down to the mechanics of archival storage. Let's look at the stamp itself, for example.
Okay, yeah, the rules there are super specific.
They really are. Washington law dictates that a notarial seal must be either circular, with a minimum diameter of 1 5/8 inches, or rectangular.
And the rectangular one has to be at least 1 inch wide by 1 5/8 inches long.
Right, exactly. It requires a minimum 8-point font. And it must include specific text like Notary Public, State of Washington, your commission name, your expiration date, and your commission number.
Yeah, I see those granular measurements in the DOL guides. But I have to ask, why does the state care if a stamp is 1 inch wide versus 3/4 of an inch? It just seems overly bureaucratic.
I get that, but it's entirely about readability down the line. When these authenticated documents, like deeds or mortgages, are sent to a county clerk, they are eventually scanned.
Oh, right. They get microfilmed or digitized into these massive county databases.
Precisely. And if a notary uses a tiny illegible font or a shape that doesn't fit standard scanning margins, the optical character recognition software, the OCR, just fails.
Oh, wow. So the physical dimensions are literally engineered to ensure the ink impression survives the digitization process decades from now.
Exactly. It's built for the long haul.
The guides also explicitly ban the use of the Washington state seal on the stamp. I found that interesting.
Yeah, the mechanism there is really about preventing false authority. The notary is a commissioned officer of the state authenticating a signature, sure, but they are not endorsing the document's contents on behalf of the state government.
Right, that makes sense. Allowing the official state seal on a personal stamp totally blurs that line.
Exactly. It could potentially trick a consumer into thinking a private contract has actual governmental backing.
Definitely. And furthermore, the physical security of that stamp acts as a vital forensic tool, right? If a notary stamp is lost or stolen, the law gives them 10 days to notify the Department of Licensing.
Yes, and they are required to get a replacement that contains a variance.
Let's explore that variance concept because the source material makes a point of it. How does that actually work in practice?
So a variance is a slight, deliberate alteration from the original stamp design. It might be an added border or a slightly different font weight.
Or even just a microscopic dot placed in a specific corner.
Exactly. And if someone steals the original stamp and starts fraudulently authenticating property transfers, investigators can examine the ink impressions on the fraudulent deeds.
Oh, I see. The variance allows them to instantly distinguish between the stolen stamp and the legitimate replacement.
Bingo. This is also exactly why the law mandates that if the original lost stamp is ever found, it must be physically destroyed.
Because you can't have two active stamps floating around. That physical security is intense. But the rules around the notarial journal are what really make me push back on this whole idea of a digital revolution.
Oh, the journal rules are wild.
Right. Every single notarization in Washington must be chronicled in a permanent, bound book with numbered pages, even if a notary is performing an entirely electronic act on a digital document.
Yeah, Washington law states that an electronic journal can only be kept in addition to the tangible paper journal, never in place of it.
It's like the paper journal acts as the black box flight recorder of the legal world.
The black box is the perfect way to conceptualize it. The Washington Administrative Code enforces a classic defense-in-depth security model.
Right.
The state embraces digital transactions for their speed, but they fully acknowledge the inherent vulnerabilities of the digital landscape. Servers rot, cloud providers go bankrupt, files get corrupted.
And proprietary file formats just become completely obsolete over time.
Exactly. By requiring a physical analog backup for every single transaction, the state ensures that the legal timeline survives a catastrophic server failure.
And the retention period definitely reflects that. The notary must retain exclusive control of that physical journal for exactly 10 years after the date of the last entry.
Right. An employer can't even demand it, even if they paid for the journal.
Wow. Okay, we're going to take a quick break to pay the bills. But speaking of equipping yourself, as we've mentioned in prior episodes, make sure to check out the Notary Knowledge books by Derrick Spruill.
Yeah, they are a fantastic resource for everything we talk about here.
Definitely. All right, we'll be right back.
And we are back. So, having established this incredibly physical foundation of stamps and bound books, we encounter a massive contradiction.
We really do. The state is anchoring the notary to paper, yet allowing them to authenticate signers halfway across the globe. Let's look at how the definition of presence actually works now.
Well, historically, presence meant physical proximity. You
Yeah.
sit across the desk, you breathe the same air, you hand over a physical driver's license.
Right. And for traditional paper notarizations, as well as in-person electronic notarizations, or IPN, that traditional definition holds firm.
Yes, physical presence is mandatory, meaning close enough to see, hear, communicate, and exchange tangible credentials.
But the remote online notarization endorsement, Ryan, fundamentally changes the architecture of the transaction.
It really does. It redefines appearance to include audio-visual feeds. But because physical proximity is completely removed, the identity proofing has to become significantly more rigorous to compensate.
Yeah, the sources outline a two-step technological gauntlet if the notary doesn't personally know the remote signer. It starts with credential analysis and then moves to a dynamic knowledge-based authentication assessment, the KBA.
Right. Let's break down the mechanics of this because it's far beyond just holding an ID up to a webcam.
Yeah, please do.
So credential analysis is automated software that replaces the notary's physical inspection of the ID. Instead of a human feeling for raised text or looking for a hologram, the remote signer scans the front and back of their ID using a high-definition camera.
Okay, and then what does the software do?
The software uses optical and cryptographic checks to verify the security features. It reads the microprinting, verifies the barcode data against the printed data on the front, and pings governmental databases.
Wow, just to ensure the ID template matches the state's exact specifications for that specific issue year.
Exactly. And once the software decides the ID isn't a fake, the human has to prove they are the person on that ID through the KBA quiz.
Now, the rules for this quiz seem incredibly punishing.
They are very strict.
The signer must answer a minimum of 5 questions generated from public and private data records. Things like property history, credit history, old vehicle registrations. Each question has 5 possible choices.
Right. And you must score at least 80%, meaning you can only miss one.
And the timer is set at exactly 2 minutes. If you fail, you get exactly 1 retake within 24 hours. Why is the timer so aggressive?
The 2-minute limit is an anti-fraud mechanism. If you give a signer 10 minutes to complete the quiz, a fraudster who has stolen your identity has enough time to open another browser tab.
Oh, right. They could frantically search Zillow, LexisNexis, or your social media to find out what street you lived on in 2014.
Exactly. By compressing the time to 2 minutes, the system forces instinctual, deeply ingrained knowledge. You don't have to think about the make of the car you drove a decade ago. You just know it.
A fraudster has to guess. But practically speaking, what happens if your internet connection drops midway through question 4? Or you have a sudden distraction and step away from the camera?
The state standards for communication technology are totally unforgiving. If a remotely located individual exits the workflow for any reason, they must restart the entire identity verification process from the beginning.
So there's no pausing, no saving your progress?
None. The integrity of the session relies entirely on it being a continuous, uninterrupted stream of verified presence.
That is wild.
What's fascinating here is how the concept of geographic venue still strictly limits the notary's authority, even in a completely borderless digital space.
Right, because with remote online notarization, the signer can be literally anywhere in the world. That Paris cafe we mentioned, or deployed overseas.
But the notary is geographically anchored. The notary must be physically located within the borders of Washington state during the remote act.
The digital connection spans the globe, but the legal jurisdiction remains tightly bound to the physical soil.
Precisely.
Here's where it gets really interesting. We have this seamless, high-tech ARN system for digital documents.
Right.
But certain legacy frameworks, like estate trusts or specific vehicle titles, still stubbornly require actual paper and a wet signature.
Yeah, which is a big hurdle.
If the signer is in Paris and the notary is in Seattle, how does the state bridge that gap? The sources point to House Bill 2158, effective January 1st, 2027.
Right, which introduces paper remote online notarization, or PRON. PRON is a highly specific hybrid workflow designed to solve the wet signature problem.
Okay, how does it work?
During the secure audio-visual recording, the remote signer takes a physical pen and signs the tangible piece of paper on camera. They also sign a specific declaration of perjury.
And then what?
Then the signer has 3 days to physically mail or deliver those wet signed documents to the notary.
Okay, wait, I have to challenge this process. This sounds like an absolute bureaucratic nightmare.
It does sound pretty complex.
I mean, you are mixing a real-time secure video feed with the unpredictability of the Postal Service. Why codify such a clunky, cumbersome process into state law when you already have secure digital signatures?
It seems inefficient, but it is a necessary bridge. This process was largely born out of the necessities of the pandemic, when legal life had to continue, but people couldn't gather.
Oh, right. And certain legal frameworks simply could not process digital files.
Exactly. County recorders or specific trust laws demanded the physical permanence of paper. By forcing the signer to mail the document within 3 days, the state is maintaining a tight chain of custody.
So the notary watches the pen hit the paper on video, and a few days later, they hold that exact piece of paper.
Right. PRON effectively merges old-world physical mail delivery with new-world secure video evidence. It satisfies the legacy requirements for physical paper while maintaining the rigorous biometric verification of the modern era.
It perfectly illustrates the friction between two eras of law. We'll pause here for just a second. Please remember to rate, subscribe, and share the podcast with your friends and colleagues.
Yes, it really helps us out.
Okay, we are back. Now, moving beyond the technology, we have to look at the boundaries of the notary's authority. This audience already knows Notary 101.
Right. A notary cannot draft documents, select certificates, or give legal advice unless they are a licensed attorney.
But the digital landscape and the ability to operate remotely vastly expand a notary's reach, which makes enforcing those boundaries much more complex.
Exactly. And that expanded reach is why Washington state sets strict maximums on fees and aggressively polices advertising. For traditional in-person notarial acts, the maximum fee is $15 per act.
But for remote notarial acts, the state acknowledges the technology overhead, like the software subscriptions, the identity algorithms, and bumps the maximum fee to $25.
Right. Though notaries always have the option to charge nothing at all, but the real defense mechanisms are in the advertising disclaimers.
Oh, yeah. The rules there are very strict.
If a non-attorney notary advertises their services, they must include a prominent disclaimer in every single language they advertise in.
Explicitly stating they are not an attorney, cannot give legal or immigration advice, and cannot charge fees for those activities. The sources place heavy emphasis on the translation aspect of that advertising rule. Why is the state so concerned with how a notary advertises in different languages?
It is a direct countermeasure against predatory notario scams. These scams exploit a very specific cultural and linguistic misunderstanding.
Right. In many Latin American countries which operate under civil law systems, A notario publico is a highly trained legal professional.
Yes, they're basically equivalent to an attorney who drafts complex contracts and provides legal counsel. But in the United States common law system, a notary public has a strictly limited ministerial role.
Wow. So scam artists exploit this translation, setting up shop as a notario in immigrant communities.
Exactly. Charging exorbitant fees and giving catastrophic, often unauthorized immigration or legal advice. By mandating that the disclaimer be translated into the exact language of the advertisement, the state strips away that linguistic loophole.
It acts as a powerful shield for vulnerable consumers. The way I like to conceptualize the notary's role is by looking at a sports referee.
Oh, that's good enough.
Right. The notary is the referee on the field. They're there to officiate the transaction, ensure everyone follows the procedural rules, verify the identities of the players, and blow the whistle if there is a foul.
Like coercion or a lack of awareness from the signer.
Exactly. But the referee absolutely cannot tell the players which plays to run. If a signer asks, "Is this contract a good deal for me?" the notary has to throw the flag and state they cannot evaluate the legal wisdom of the document.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the entire apparatus we've discussed, the precise dimensions of the stamp, the 10-year retention of the paper journal, the rigorous KBA timers, and the explicit advertising disclaimers are all different layers of the exact same defense system.
Right. The goal isn't just to authenticate a signature.
No, it's to create an unimpeachable legal record that withstands scrutiny decades into the future, protecting the public from both digital fraud and the unauthorized practice of law.
Which brings us right back to you, the listener. Why does navigating this intricate web of physical boundaries and digital tripwires actually matter to you?
It matters a lot.
Whether you are buying a home, setting up a living trust, or authenticating corporate documents for a remote team, you rely on these hybrid systems. Understanding that a dropped internet connection forces a complete restart is crucial.
Or knowing that your electronic journal legally requires a physical analog backup.
Right. It ensures your most critical, life-altering documents won't be voided on a procedural technicality. You aren't just trusting the technology, you are trusting the strict legal framework wrapped around it.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean? It means the modernization of the notary system wasn't about replacing paper with pixels. It was about weaponizing technology to reinforce the ancient requirement of verified human presence.
It is a remarkable synthesis of tradition and technology. And this raises an important question. As artificial intelligence, deepfakes, and voice cloning technology become more sophisticated, accessible, and increasingly indistinguishable from reality, how will we definitively prove what is real?
That is a terrifying thought, honestly.
We often look at things like a tangible paper journal, a physical ink stamp with a calculated forensic variance, or the 3-day mail delay of a PR-owned transaction as clunky, inefficient relics of a bygone era.
But as the digital world becomes infinitely easier to manipulate and spoof, will those very outdated, stubborn physical requirements actually become our ultimate fail-safe defense against digital fraud? That is a fascinating thought. That the highly trained, tech-certified fraud prevention agent of the future might still rely, when all the servers go dark, on the indisputable reality of a rubber stamp in a bound paper book.
Something to really think about the next time you have to swear an oath over a webcam.
That's it only. Well, please remember to email your questions to Derrick@derrickspruill.com. We will try to answer as soon as possible at the end of our shows.
We'd love to hear from you all.
So to wrap up, our executive producer is Derrick Spruill, lead writer and host, Marylyn Trotter.
Montes Travis on graphics and co-hosting today. Our music is by Thomas Bynum.
And this show is produced by Magnificent Workz Business Solutions.
Don't just be listeners of the knowledge, be doers of the knowledge.
This is Notary Knowledge. Until next time.
Ready to unlock your notary potential and boost your income? It's time to move beyond basic notarizations. In Notary, Niche Navigator by Derrick Spruill, learn the most profitable specialized services. Learn to master high-demand areas like loan signings, international apostilles, and I-9 employment verifications. This essential guide offers new ideas to help you become the go-to expert in your field. Grab your copy of Notary, Niche Navigator by Derrick Spruill today and start building your empire.